My name is Moy Thompson. I am a ceramist and have a show right now at the Lois Lambert Gallery in Santa Monica, California. I thought I'd talk a little bit about the process, about my work, and particularly about the pieces here in the show. So maybe we'll start with the title piece of the show. The show is called Shelter, and this piece is the title piece. It's called Shelter. I love to work with clay, which I've been working with clay since I was in my early 20s, living in New York City. I took a pottery class, which I loved, and was the first person in the studio every Saturday morning, the last person they kicked out every Sunday night. And it really became my life, and has become even more a part of my life as the decades have passed. I usually work on the wheel, but more recently have done a lot of pieces with my slab roller. I roll out slabs and I build things like towers, which is what this is, Shelter. So I have 4 pieces, 4 slabs that I put together to form a tower. And something I've been doing recently is to bring words into my work. I love to read. I love books and poetry and wise words, quotes from people of yore. So what I have here, and which you may not be able to see, I'll read to you. It's a quote from a beautiful book by Paul Bowles called The Sheltering Sky. And the quote is this: "How fragile we are under the sheltering sky. Behind the sheltering sky is a vast, dark universe, and we are just so small." Which to me sort of captures something beautiful about our world and our place in it. And I wanted to take that idea of our being very small creatures in this vast world in all of the thinking I did for this show. So you'll see I have a tower, a tall tower with these tiny little words, and a little tree with tiny little pebbles supporting it. But another thing I was thinking about is clay in the world. I think most of my life I've thought of clay as being something very fragile. Once it's fired, you have to be very careful with it, especially in earthquake country here in California, where I'm always worried someone's going to buy a piece and then there's going to be an earthquake and it's going to break. And I realized recently when I started to cut holes in things and to cut my pieces apart, I'll show you some more of those later, that in fact, not only are my pieces fragile in the world and need to be sheltered, but they, in fact, shelter. That if you look inside a pot, if you look inside this tower through the windows I've cut, you find that there is, in fact, a space that's defined by the clay around it. There's a space that's sort of shaped and sheltered by the clay itself. So it was sort of this awakening on my part to think about my pieces not only as things that needed to be sheltered, but that, in fact, themselves shelter. So that is a theme that you'll see runs throughout this show. Here is a piece that is based on one of my favorite songs. It was by the Talking Heads. The lyrics you may recognize: "Home is where I want to be, pick me up and turn me round." You see, I give the Talking Heads credit here. Sean Colvin also does a beautiful cover of it. She slows it down. But again, I just have been thinking about this idea of shelter and home and what it means to have a safe place. So I could not skip my favorite song. So this is it. And for this technique, actually, this is something a similar thing to my retreat piece that I showed you with the colored stripes. And just so you understand, I roll out these slabs, I put them together, I create these forms. And in this case, I painted the whole thing in black. All of these pieces were painted in black, and then I use a tool to carve into them. So I carve. You'll see, and if you get close, you can actually see the lines of the carving. And I carved down to the white clay. So this is actually the top of the clay, where the black still is, and then this is deeper down, where I've gotten back to the white clay. So here is another piece, which I call London. I was in London this summer, so it was on my mind. I happen to love rain. We don't get much of it here in Southern California, but when we do, it's beautiful. And I miss those thunder showers that I grew up with. So this is a way to capture it. I also really love a series. With the barn piece I just showed you, I had nine little pieces that formed a series of well, it was collectively a barn on the wall, but it was a series of little squares, which is the same as this. And it was really fun for me just to make these and then use underglaze to create my rain. you probably can't tell from where you're sitting there, but the rain goes down all the sides of it, and it very much looks like, to me it looks like rain. And I then covered it with a glaze, which was an opaque clear, and it meant that when it fired, I should say it was a matte clear, so that you could see the rain through it, but it very much had a foggy effect, as if you were walking on a London street with your umbrella. Again, this is a great way for me to incorporate paper or fabric that I love, just a little punch of color that brightens the whole scene. And this paper I particularly love because it looks like rain splattered on it. This piece uses a lot of what I've talked about before. You can see my technique here. I have these slab bottles. I painted the outside of them in black, and then I carved the trees out of them. So if you come up, you can actually feel the tree. It goes pretty deep inside. And what you see here is a little house and a very long stairway, which I cut from a single piece of chicken wire until you get to the very top. And I hope that you can come into the very top, because this is where the title of the piece comes in. It's called Ocean View. This is the ocean view from the house way down at the bottom of the canyon. You climb up the stairs until you get to the very top of the hillside, where there's an ocean view. This happens in my canyon, which is by the sea. Not every house has a view of the ocean. Sometimes they're very deep in the canyon, but if they're lucky, they're on a piece of property that has a big hillside, and they build their stairway up the hillside to their pavilion with a canyon view. So this is very much an ode to my particular Santa Monica Canyon. And again, I've made, out of chicken wire, I've made a little lounge chair, a little side table, and even a little umbrella. So, and a piece of sky right here, made out of clay. So that's that. I also scattered pebbles around because I love pebbles, and they bring sort of the color of the base of the canyon into this piece, because there's often a little stream, a channel that runs through the canyon that will bring rocks down from the hillside.